Dollar, the symbol of power of one of the largest economies on the planet, the world's reserve currency. The demand for dollars in the world continues to grow, despite the measures taken by individual countries to abandon the U.S. currency. The bills issued by the Federal Reserve System have long attracted researchers, who keep discovering new facts indicating the presence of strange symbols on them. Who added these symbols to the banknotes, and why? Why do the banks that are part of the Fed surpass many major countries in terms of influence? How did the United States manage to make the whole world dance to their tune and buy the dollar, which isn't even backed by anything anymore? How did a group of ultra-wealthy people secure the exclusive right to print dollars, essentially creating money from nothing? Today, we'll shed light on the secrets of the American currency, talk about the Federal Reserve System, and turn back the course of history to see who made the dollar the world's #1 currency and how. Get ready to see a lot of money. A whole lot of money. Let's get started. Muammar Gaddafi dreamed that his country would stop using dollars when selling Libyan oil. In 2010, he announced the switch to the so-called gold dinar, a local currency backed by precious metal. The United States was not pleased because oil-producing countries abandoning the dollar could trigger a domino effect, where after Libya, other countries would start using their own local currencies for transactions. Losing global dominance was not part of the plans of the American ruling elite. Pegging the dinar to gold gave it a competitive advantage, and when Gaddafi directly called on other Muslim countries to abandon the greenbacks, the patience of the American elite ran out. It wasn't long before Muammar Gaddafi was overthrown by militants who claimed to be the Libyan people. In reality, this happened with the active involvement of the US and NATO countries. At that time, the Americans justified the invasion of the country by claiming it was necessary to save the Libyan people from Gaddafi. The leader, whom the Americans called a tyrant, was killed, and the country descended into poverty that was terrible even by African standards, while US hegemony continued. You can watch a more detailed discussion of all this in another one of our episodes. And now, we'll tell you how the United States achieved dominance in the financial sector. And this story will forever change your understanding of how global payment systems actually work today. So, how did the American financial system manage to subordinate all the others? The dollar gained its unique status during World War II. Due to its geographical location, the United States was the least affected country during the hostilities. You could say that the war hardly affected them at all. At this time, the economies of European countries were collapsing along with the destruction of their cities, and their financial strategies and systems were falling apart. A stable currency was needed, one to which all the others could be pegged. That's when the world looked to the States as a source of stability. The US economy was strong, but the dollar itself didn't yet have exclusive status. A plan was brewing in the American banking system to capture global markets by making the dollar the world's reserve currency. For the first time in human history, the currency of a single country was planned to dominate the entire planet Earth. The Americans proposed a system in which their currency was pegged to gold at a rate of $35 per ounce, and all other currencies fixed their exchange rates to the dollar and could not change them by more than 0.75% in either direction. As a result, it turned out that it was impossible to exchange any currency for gold except for the dollar and the pound. To buy gold, you first had to buy dollars or pounds. This is how the Bretton Woods system of financial relations was formed. In some ways, this mechanism was not bad. Amidst a severe post-war crisis, it protected economies from hyperinflation. But it was only good as long as the dollar itself remained stable. The United States got involved in the arms race with the Soviet Union. Then, there was an extremely costly competition between the superpowers in spaceflight, and as a result, the United States became mired in debt. They began to print dollars uncontrollably to pay for the war in Vietnam as well. Soon, most countries realized that the whole world was financing the deficits of just two countries, the United States and the United Kingdom, since the external debt of these two states exceeded their gold reserves. There were more dollars in circulation than gold backing them. It seemed like the right time to abandon it as an international means of payment. But how can you do that if the fall of the dollar would collapse the world economy, which had just recovered after the war? By the early 1970s, the dollar had fallen in value so much that gold was literally flowing out of American vaults. Because of the inability to back the dollar with gold, trust in it was rapidly declining. But the world, held hostage by the American currency, was forced to make yet another compromise. The United States officially canceled the exchange of dollars for gold, and the other countries switched from the gold standard to the paper dollar standard. From now on, the value of the U.S. currency is based on nothing. More precisely, it is believed that it is based on the power of the American economy, which in turn relies on the unique status of its currency. A vicious circle. The financial systems of the world's countries have found themselves in a suffocating dependence on dollar transactions, and how easy it is to break free from it is shown by the fate of Muammar Gaddafi. More than 200 countries and billions of people around the world, often without even realizing it, use dollars every day, since the vast majority of exchange transactions are conducted in this currency. Oil, gas, metal, and grain. Literally everything depends on how the United States is doing. The dollar is even the official currency of many less developed countries, such as El Salvador, Panama, Ecuador, and many others. The economies of these countries depend 100% on the financial system of the United States. Few people know that before 1945, there were bills in America with denominations of $500, $1,000, $10,000, and even $100,000. The last one was issued for a very short time and could not get into the hands of an ordinary American, since it was used only for transactions between the U.S. Treasury and Federal Reserve banks. Such bills never entered public circulation. After they stopped being issued, most of the 42,000 printed notes were destroyed. The Federal Reserve states that absolutely all currency issued by the U.S. government since 1861 is still accepted without restrictions and retains its full face value. Selling these bills is more profitable, as their collectible value far exceeds their face value. Here's another fact. Paper money, as dollars are sometimes called, is actually not paper at all. They are made of 75% cotton and 25% linen. And there are also these rare collectible $10 bills from 1914 which were printed on hemp paper. On the reverse side of this bill, there is an engraving by Marcus Baldwin called Farming Pennsylvania. At that time, Pennsylvania was the center of hemp cultivation, and the plant depicted on the bill is much taller than wheat and flax. Apparently, it is indeed hemp. We have 2 detailed episodes about how industrial hemp was banned worldwide. Check them out. They're interesting. But for now, let's continue talking about the dollar. The level of security is impressive. It's extremely difficult to counterfeit modern American bills because the watermarks are embedded in the inner layer. Finally, let's discuss the symbols. The banknotes are literally packed with them. The $1 bill attracts the most attention from researchers. A cross resembling the cross of the Order of Malta is hidden behind the ones in each of the 4 corners of the bill. Some people say it's a windmill. Some interpret the silhouette as a 4-leaf clover. A cipher is at the pyramid's base. The Roman numerals mean the year 1776, when America became an independent nation. Right in the center of the bill is the inscription, "In God We Trust." The U.S. monetary authorities have the right to place this phrase at the center of the bill. It is curious, however, how zealously they defend the inscription from attacks, and even just questions from dissatisfied people. In 2018, a group of 29 atheists filed a lawsuit in an American court, claiming that the motto on the banknotes violates the First Amendment to the Constitution. Among other things, it guarantees all citizens freedom of religion and prohibits the establishment of a state religion. The case was eventually brought before the U.S. federal court, which decided to keep the inscription on dollar bills and coins. However, this decision is hardly surprising. The phrase about trusting in God first appeared in 1864. It was adopted as the national motto almost 100 years later, in 1956. Many people argued with the government and Federal Reserve, demanding the inscription be removed from the banknote, but they were always unsuccessful. The greatest number of questions is raised by the pyramid with the shining all-seeing eye above it. The image either symbolizes God watching over order in the state, or it means the oversight of the powerful over ordinary people, who, by using the dollar, support the banks of the Federal Reserve System. A popular version is that the eye in the triangle is a Masonic symbol called the Radiant Delta, which represents God, the great architect of the universe. The pyramid itself may also be related to the Masons and symbolize a system of knowledge and the degree of initiation of its members. The higher you go toward the top, the more truth is revealed to the initiate. But even if we assume that the mysterious eye on the bills is just a symbol, what about the fact that the number 13 is literally everywhere and, to put it mildly, has nothing to do with God? The eagle with a shield is holding 13 arrows in one claw. In the other claw, there's an olive branch with 13 leaves and fruits. Some say the olive branch in the eagle's claws symbolizes peace, while the arrows represent war. That sounds plausible. The eagle's head is turned toward the branch. This is interpreted as the country's desire for prosperity and peace. Is that true? There are 13 horizontal and 13 vertical stripes on the shield. There are 13 stars right above the eagle's head. The pyramid has 13 levels of bricks, and the two phrases at the top, above the eagle and above the pyramid, each have 13 letters. The U.S. authorities explain that the number symbolizes the 13 former colonies from which the states were originally formed. The two triangles form an anagram of Mason. And this, perhaps, is already hard to explain as a coincidence. A strange phrase, which translates as time beginning, new order, for ages, and from many, one, is too mysterious and abstract for anyone to give it a definite interpretation. Officially, it is believed that those who wrote them on the dollar many years ago did not mean world domination by the United States of America, but were describing the internal structure of the state at the moment of its creation. There are also other mysterious symbols. Some people see an owl in the upper right corner. The government explained the presence of the unusual design silhouette by saying that, a long time ago, the creators simply made a mistake when developing the design. Of course, symbols themselves don't mean that much, because what's more important is how things are in real life. The U.S. Federal Reserve is now often seen as the center of global evil in real life, and there are reasons for this. The banks of this structure print dollars and increase the very U.S. external debt that experts so often refer to when predicting the imminent collapse of the bubble called the American financial system. The Federal Reserve was established much later than European central banks. The place of its founding is considered to be Jekyll Island, which was acquired by a community of ultra-wealthy people in 1886. The most influential figures of their time had access to the private club. Morgan, Pulitzer, the Rothschilds, and the entire financial elite. They and their family members possessed the majority of the world's wealth. It was they who developed the concept that was later brought to life as the Federal Reserve System. A unique aspect of the Federal Reserve System is that it acts as a central bank, but is owned by private individuals instead of the state. The head of the Federal Reserve isn't accountable to voters. In fact, it is a joint stock company whose shares have a special status. In theory, the government controls the activities of the Federal Reserve by appointing its governors. However, there have always been many questions about how exactly these appointments are made. Is it possible that those who control the printing press would listen to an outsider, even if that person is the President of the United States? The clans have lasted for centuries, amassing great experience and wealth, while presidents serve briefly before fading into history. No one knows how much longer the United States will remain dominant. Nothing in this world is eternal, and for several decades now, people have been predicting the collapse of the American currency. But it's too early to celebrate this. After all, the wreckage of the collapsing financial system of the United States, with a probability close to 100%, will bury all the world's financial institutions and affect the lives of everyone, no matter where they are. On the other hand, maybe it's actually good that there is such a stable currency as the dollar, which is convenient to use as a universal equivalent for everything. Maybe it's better if things just keep going as they are. Let's discuss this in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next episode on our channel.